All right. Hey, what's up, good people? I'm QC. This is a special interview for Talkin and Grubbin. I have here a diehard Pittsburgh fan who's turned his passion into some podcasts, starting with the donut bag on podbean.com. This is Joey Toscano. How you doing?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good, trying to survive these wins here in Cleveland,
Oh
but that's
man,
okay.
gonna blow away here.
I hope not. So, well, let's get started to talking about your Steelers. They missed the playoffs early, well, this past season. So, how long has the issues within the Steelers been brewing before they were made public
What with Antonio Brown or everything?
with everything?
Here's the thing: we don't know how long the issues have been brewing. Really, if you could think of all the issues, they kind of started with the Le'Veon Bell situation, and that was about 2 years ago. So that's when the drama started, and now and the thing is, if the Steelers just found a way to make the playoffs, we would have never known about this whole Antonio Brown thing would have never even happened. It would have just been swept under the rug, and I think a lot of it has been swept under the rug. But the only thing that kept them together was that they were winning. And when they didn't make the playoffs, then all hell broke loose, and they couldn't hide it anymore.
Okay. Do you think their past playoff failures has something to do with the issues?
Yeah, yeah, I do. You know, the way that the Steelers are built, and the way that with Ben Roethlisberger being toward the end of his career, and the makeup of the roster, basically they have this Super Bowl window of the past few years that they have this window of trying to make the Super Bowl, and they have failed in the playoffs. Heck, they didn't even make the playoffs this year. And then last season they did great. They went 13-3. They were the number 2 seed. They got a first round bye. Everything was set. Uh, then Jacksonville comes in and destroys them. And it was, I think the score was 45-42 or something like that. Basically, and that was because unfortunately the Ryan Shazier injury, and that it crippled the defense that season, and they didn't really do enough um, to replace him this season. And the defense was one of the main reasons they didn't make the playoffs. So it's bad. People are saying, well, now that Antonio Brown's going to be gone, it's like that's it. This is the window is closed. The Steelers are crumbling. Blah blah blah. I don't think that's the case, but it definitely hurts our chances not having Antonio Brown.
Definitely. Okay, can you give me details on the Le'Veon Bell contract fallout?
The Le'Veon Bell situation is basically it's Le'Veon Bell wanting to maximize his earnings, and he's basically a victim of this stupid collective bargaining agreement, these stupid rules about the franchise tag. Uh, he he wants to um, set a precedent. He wants to blow up the salary structure for running backs. I think right now the maximum a running back is making. I'm not sure about Todd Gurley because that was like the latest big contract, but the most someone is making is about 8, 9, $10 million a year, something like that. And his point is, not only is he an excellent running back, but he's also an excellent receiver, and he wants to be paid for that. So he came to what a couple seasons ago. They tried the Steelers put a franchise tag on him. It didn't. They couldn't come to a deal, so he played that 1 year under the deal, and I think he got 12 million guaranteed. So the last off season, it happened again. It's like, well, and the Steelers made him an offer. I think the offer was like 5 years, 70 million or something like that. and he said that's not enough. So the Steelers, and I think everybody thought, okay, well, he's going to do the same thing as last year. He's going to play that 1 year under, and this time the contract would have been $14.5 million. He's going to play that year and then probably become a free agent and then be done with it. And he decided to not to just sit out. And I don't know what was going on in his camp. I don't know if this was the plan all along. I don't know if he was making it up on the fly. Like, I kind of think that was the case. I think he fully intended on doing what he did last year, of coming in, right before game one. But then the Todd Gurley contract happened, and he saw how much Todd Gurley got in guaranteed money, and he said, well, crap. This is if something happens to me this year, I'm going to lose out on all that money. Forget this. And then, so he sat out, and then people thought, well, he has to come in by week 10 or something like that, which was November 13th. He has to come in by then. He has to show up to the team by then for it to count as an entire year. So people thought he was going to do that. Then people were saying, no, that's not how the contract goes. The CBA calls for he doesn't have to show up or something like that. So at that point, he decided not to show up and forfeit the entire $14.5 million. So basically, he just punted this year and gave up all that money so that he could have that long-term deal. This is all, the end game is getting that big long-term deal, because this is he's finally done with his rookie contract. This is the big contract, and I think he's 26 or 27 now. So this is probably going to be the biggest contract he's ever going to get. So it is all geared towards just getting that one big contract and then getting that, and he's all about the guaranteed money. I heard him say something like he wants $50 million guaranteed for the first 2 years or something like that. I highly doubt he's going to get that, but it's all about that big payday. So we'll see if he gets it.
Okay, so why didn't the Steelers offer the lucrative contract that Bell was looking for?
Well, in their mind, they did. The closest anybody was making before the Todd Gurley contract was like 8 or 9 million or something like that, and they were offering him 14 million a year. So in their mind, they were going to make him the highest paid running back by far. The Steelers made him a pretty good offer, but Bell thought it wasn't enough. And I don't know what kind of numbers Bell was looking for. I don't know if he was looking for 15, 16 million a year, whatever. And I mean, you can't, I think in this case, it's nobody's fault. The Steelers made him a pretty good offer. He decided not to take it. It happens. I know, people are saying, well, you should have given him more. It's like, but the Steelers, with their salary cap situation, they're always up against the cap. They're always spending right up to it. So there's only so much they could do. And, they just thought that, the offer they made was fair.
Okay. Now, as far as Le'Veon Bell and Ben Roethlisberger, what was their relationship like?
Le'Veon Bell and Ben Roethlisberger, I think it was fine. There really wasn't too much. I mean, there were some times where maybe Le'Veon Bell didn't have the greatest attitude, but for the most part, they were fine. Now, Antonio Brown and Ben Roethlisberger, that's the thing that you can make reality shows out of, and soap operas and things like that. But as far as Le'Veon Bell and Ben Roethlisberger, I think they were fine.
Okay, now that the Steelers decided not to franchise or transition him, which three teams you can see Le'Veon Bell signing with in the offseason?
Well, if he's all about the money, I mean, there are some teams that have a lot of money out there, like the Jets. I think the Jets would be a perfect destination for him. I've heard Indianapolis. That would be because they seem to be on the rise, and they're a good running back away from being a contender. There's other teams. I think San Francisco has a lot of money. I always hear about them being a possible destination. Um, yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, you know, he's going to have that big, cap hit. And there are a lot of teams out there. Oakland's another one that has a lot of space. So I mean, there's some teams with some space out there. So, and the question is, well, does he want to go to a contender or does he just care about the money? I think this whole thing was about the money, so he'll probably want to just go for the best offer.
Really?
It kind of seems that way.
Okay, now let's get into Antonio Brown. Last week actually, he put out a tweet in response to a fan saying that Ben Roethlisberger, quote unquote, has a quote unquote owner mentality, where he was basically saying that Ben can call out other players, coaches, but he doesn't want to look at himself. Does Big Ben really have that much influence or cachet within the Steelers organization?
Yeah. So after he said that, and after this whole thing happened with Antonio Brown at that last game where he didn't show up to practice, and it became known that all these problems. Basically, there's two people that have gotten a lot of criticism. The number one is Mike Tomlin. Tomlin is getting killed. Basically, people are saying it's all his fault for allowing this to happen. But the other one is Ben Roethlisberger, and there's been so much. All these, like these national TV shows, they're all saying that it's Ben's fault. But to your question, does he have that much influence? Yeah. So after Antonio Brown put out that tweet, there was an interview with Kevin Colbert, the GM of the Steelers, and he said, he doubled down. He said Ben is the unquestioned leader. Ben's the only one in that locker room that has won Super Bowls. He said something about it's Ben and 52 kids or something like that, which I thought was a really poor choice of words. But anyway, basically, I think what Colbert was doing was a response to all those national people basically blaming Ben for everything, and basically saying there's no doubt in the locker room that Ben is the leader. Another thing that happened was a year ago, the Steelers had Todd Haley as the offensive coordinator, and he was let go, or his contract wasn't renewed, or whatever. Ben and Todd Haley hated each other's guts, and they butted heads all the time. And I think Ben definitely made a power play, because a couple the season before that, Ben hinted at retirement, and I think that whole retirement thing was basically saying, not that he wants to retire, but he's just sick and tired of working with Todd Haley. So they got rid of Todd Haley, and that increased Ben's power. That basically means that the offense belongs to Ben. He had they hired or they promoted Randy Freakner, who was a quarterback's coach. They made him the offense coordinator, and Ben Roethlisberger and Freakner are very close. So basically, that gave Ben all the power in the offense, and I think that's what a lot of this problem with Antonio Brown was about. Was Antonio Brown, if he had a problem, before, when Todd Haley was the offense coordinator, there was kind of a checks and balances system. It's like, well, at least it was fair. If you have a problem with Ben, you could go to Haley or whatever. But now that Haley's gone and Ben has all the power, Brown has no choice. Brown has no say. He just has to. It's all what Ben decided to do. And I've heard, some people say that Ben has said things like to Antonio Brown, saying, "Well, I don't have to throw you the ball." It's like, that's a lot of power. So, yeah, Ben has a lot of power on the team and with the offense, and I think that's one of the reasons why the relationship soured with Antonio Brown.
Okay. Were there any other issues that played into the issues between AB and Big Ben?
Yeah. Uh, Ben would take off time. Um, there were last off season during OTAs, Ben went on vacation with his family, which I thought was really dumb. And they played it off as, well, we don't really need him here. We're fine. We want to evaluate everybody else, blah, blah, blah. Well, I think that was part of one of the reasons why Antonio Brown was so angry, was because Antonio Brown showed up to OTAs, and then I think when he saw that Ben wasn't there, he took off. So I think that was the other thing. That was one of the things. Then during the season, uh, Ben would take off every Wednesday. They even called it instead of Wednesday, they call it Ben's Day. And I think Antonio Brown was also angry about that. It's like why does this guy just get days off? Like, shouldn't he be here working? So I think that was another one of the issues that uh, Ben just taking time off. Another thing is Ben has this radio show. He has this radio show every Tuesday during football season, and after the loss to Denver, he basically called out Antonio Brown.
Yeah, remember
He
that.
said, yeah, he said, uh, I think he ran the wrong routes or something like that, because there was
Yeah, he blamed
basically
for the game-ending interception.
right, yeah, yeah, which is ridiculous because it wasn't Antonio Brown's fault. If anything, it was Ben's fault or whatever. But for whatever reason, Ben threw Antonio Brown under the bus. He also said during that interview, "I wish I would have thrown it to Juju 4 times," and that I think that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. He also called out James Washington, who's the rookie wide receiver, and I mean, and James Washington was struggling, and there was one where one pass, I think in that Denver game, where Washington was wide open. Ben threw it to him, and for some reason he dove and just missed the ball, and he was just struggling. And that's what a rookie does sometimes with but he called out Washington for that. So people were very angry that Ben was basically throwing people under the bus. The other thing that I think affects this whole relationship is the emergence of Juju Smith-Schuster. Um, Juju had a great year, and I think his stats were just as good, or if not better at times, than Antonio Brown. And I think that might have angered Antonio Brown a little bit, especially the way people were talking. People were basically saying, "Oh, is Juju now better than Antonio Brown?" And that argument is completely ridiculous, because the reason why Juju was so good was because Antonio Brown was getting all the top coverage. He was getting double covered. So all the attention is on Antonio Brown, and then the second option is Juju, and he's a lot more wide open and not getting as much coverage. So I think that rubbed Antonio the wrong way, and they had a MVP vote, which is voted by the players, and they voted Juju the MVP, and that was on the last week of the season. I think that also had something to do with Antonio Brown being so angry. And I think he wanted to say that last game was like, "Oh, you think he's so good? How about I'm not there? Let's see how good he is when he's the one getting the double teams." So yeah, there's all kinds of things that led to this disaster. That's still no excuse for what Antonio Brown did. You don't quit on your team under any circumstances, but there were a lot of things leading to that. So it's just it's an unfortunate situation, because the Steelers were losing basically the best wide receiver in the league.
Definitely. Okay. What was the altercation between AB and Big Ben that led Brown to miss the Week 17 game against the Bengals?
So apparently, what happened was they're in practice or they're doing a walkthrough, and Antonio Brown didn't run the right route or something like that. Ben said something to the effect of, get him out of here. If he can't run the right route, get him out of here. Put someone else in there. And that apparently Antonio Brown took the ball, threw it at Ben Roethlisberger, just walked off. And he didn't show up. And I think that was like on a Tuesday or Wednesday. He didn't show up for Thursday or Friday. And then on Saturday, I think his agent called and said, he'll be ready Sunday, and Mike Tomlin said, no, that's not how this works. You don't just take days off and then just show up on game day. According to Tomlin, the excuse that Antonio Brown gave was, I have a hurt knee hurts. Like, okay, fine. And that's what at the time, that's why the reason was given why, to the media and stuff, that publicly was, oh, he hurt his knee, he's questionable for the game, blah blah blah. So apparently Tomlin said, well, then can we schedule let's schedule an MRI on your knee and see how bad it is. And he didn't show up for that. So but the problem was, the beef was that what started it was that walkthrough where Ben said, get him out of here.
Wow. Okay, now according to multiple reports out of Pittsburgh that Brown had been a distraction to the team for the past year. What were some of his antics?
Apparently first of all, okay, let's start in the OTAs, which was like April or May or something like that. He gave this interview where it was really weird. It was like very angry, and he said something like, I'm not free, or something like that. It was really weird. It was really cryptic. I'm not sure what was going on. Then there was an article that this reporter put out, basically detailing a lot of things going on in Antonio Brown's personal life, and it sounds like his life is a bit of a mess. There is, he wasn't paying people, on his that were working for him, and they were doing things for him. He had multiple kids, but with multiple mothers. There's problems with that. There's all kinds of things. And Antonio Brown said, basically threatened this reporter, I think on Twitter or something like that. It's like, if I see you, I'm going to knock you out, or something like that. So there was that. There was so. During this weird interview during the offseason, he said something like, oh, you guys, you pay too much attention to me, or something like that. Well, then he shows up the first day of training camp in a helicopter. Like, what more says, screams, hey, look at me, than doing something like that. So there was that. There was apparently he would have his own house during training camp, which is weird, and kind of like where the Steelers go to training camp is in Latrobe. It's about 30 miles east of Pittsburgh. It's kind of it's at St. Vincent College, and it's a very kind of secluded area, and it's it's supposed to be, and everybody stays in dorms, and everybody, it's a so the team can bond and all that good stuff. So apparently Antonio Brown he had his own house, just rented a house or something like that away from that. So that was another thing. He one of the Steelers reporters said he was limping during one of the practices, and he screamed at the reporter, called him racist. I don't know. And then during the Kansas City game, which was in week 2, he didn't show up the day after the game, and somebody on Twitter criticized him or something like that, or said something like, "Well, let's, you know, what would happen if the Steelers didn't have Antonio Brown or something like that?" And Antonio Brown replied, "Well, then trade me and let's find out." So there was that. There was just it was just weird behavior all year. He just didn't seem happy. That was the gist of it. He just didn't seem happy for whatever reason. And people say that he changed. That he used to always be this happy guy, always smiling, always happy. And this year he seemed very angry and troubled. And there was also that situation in the off season where apparently he has this condo in Miami that's on the 14th floor, and apparently it got robbed, and he lost like $80,000 or something like that. And he got really angry and started throwing furniture off the top, and apparently he's on the top floor. He's throwing furniture off the balcony of this condo, and apparently there were people on the bottom, and this furniture nearly hit these people, and it probably would have killed him if it actually did hit them. So they sued him. So there was that. Also, there was at what point during the season he got caught speeding. He was going 100 miles an hour down a suburban road. So yeah, it was just one thing after the other this past year.
Wow. So he basically was asking for a trade this past year before he finally asked for a trade.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Now that he's made his demands for a trade to be public, now we all know that the Patriots are out of the question. Also, AFC North teams like the Browns, the Ravens, and the Bengals are out of the question. Which teams you can see the Steelers trading AB to?
I think it would be either, if it's going to be an AFC team, it would be a team that's not doing so well, like maybe the Jets, or the Raiders. I think the Raiders would be the ideal destination because they have like 3 or 4 first round draft picks, so they could easily just give up one of those later first round draft picks, and I think that would satisfy both sides. If it's the NFC, uh, you know, I he wants. It's obvious Antonio Brown wants to go to the 49ers because he put out a picture of himself in a 49ers uniform hugging Jerry Rice. So that was a pretty good indication of where he wants to go. And I mean it would be good, but I don't know whether whether the 49ers want to do that. I've heard Arizona. I've heard this scenario where the Steelers trade Antonio Brown and Arizona gives back Josh Rosen to the Steelers, so that I guess Rosen would be like the the heir apparent of the next quarterback after Ben retires, and that would allow the Cardinals to draft Kyler Murray as the number 1 pick. So there's that. I've heard Carolina. That would make some sense, but the other thing about this is apparently, whether this is true or not, teams are scared off by his behavior, by his the goofy things he's doing on social media. But I think they would be most concerned with the fact that it sounds like he wants to redo his contract, and there's people that are saying that that's what this is all about. It's not about the problem with Ben or Tomlin or whatever. It's about he signed his deal, I think, in 2017, and at the time it was a good deal. I forget how much it is. I think about $16 million a year or something like that. At the time, he was the highest paid, but now there's been a couple contracts after that. So he might be thinking, hey, if I'm the best wide receiver in the league, I better be paid like it. So he might indicate that wherever he gets traded, he might want to tell those teams, hey, you rip up that contract, we're making a new contract, and I'm getting more money. So that might scare teams off too.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So, how has all the Steelers issues, how have the fans been reacting to all the issues that's been going on with the Steelers?
Oh boy. It's this is better than any reality show you're seeing. This is better than anything the Kardashians are putting out. Any drama, any soap opera. This is way better than that. Steeler fans are basically uh, they're I think when we Steeler fans, I think, are blaming Tomlin. They're basically saying this is Mike Tomlin's fault, and I think it's a little unfair, but I think he still has to take the majority of the blame on this. Um, and but mostly they're just angry with Antonio Brown. The national people are blaming Ben Roethlisberger for the most part, and also blaming Tomlin. But um, I think Steeler fans right now, if you asked any Steeler fan, how are the Steelers going to do in the 2019 season, they'll probably all say terrible. They're not going to make the playoffs. The team's crumbling. It's the end of the world. And I think that's way overblown. I actually think out of all this, depending on what they do in this offseason, because they have so many holes, if they fill those holes adequately, I think the team will be so motivated they hear all these things about everybody counting them out, everybody saying, their run is over, the Steelers are crumbling, they're no good anymore. The team hears all this stuff, and I think they're going to be super motivated to show that they can still do well without Antonio Brown, and to basically shut up all the naysayers. So I think the Steelers will do well, but right now it just looks like dark times.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Now, if you could divide it up in percentages, how much blame would you give Calvin Colbert, Mike Tomlin, and Ben Roethlisberger?
I would say Ben Roethlisberger 25%, and Tomlin and Colbert's the other 75%. We never know what they basically act as one person, like the Steelers management. I mean, part of the problem why, one of the big reasons why the Steelers didn't make the playoffs is because the defense wasn't good enough. And they're saying, well, is that because of the defensive coordinator? No, or maybe, or that could be that they don't, that they missed on picks. Like, they have a hole at cornerback. They have a hole at cornerback because they drafted Artie Burns in the first round a couple years ago, and that was a total bust. They haven't adequately, done anything to replace Ryan Shazier, an inside linebacker. So, Tomlin and Colbert, they're basically, when they say who picks these players, they basically act as a team. So, whatever. But in terms of why it's Tomlin's fault or how much blame he deserves of this, I think he's getting a bad rap here, and here's why. They say, well, you gave him preferential treatment. Like, but that's what every star gets. Every star on every team gets a little bit of preferential treatment. They say, when they say, oh, every team they treat their players the same. Like, no, they don't. Don't tell me that Tom Brady gets treated the same as the 53rd guy on the roster. Hey, Tom Brady had his own trainer and all that goofy stuff. So, but basically, the deal is with a star player, yeah, we'll treat you a little bit different. We'll let you get away with some things. And, but then it's up to that player to decide, okay, well, I'll get away with some things, but not, go crazy with it. What happened with Antonio Brown was they said, okay, we'll let you get away with some things. We'll let you come to meetings late or go go stay somewhere else during training camp or something like that. But Antonio Brown just took that and just kept making it worse and worse. And he wouldn't. We don't even know the extent of all the things he got away with, but he it just he just Tomlin just gave him an inch, and Brown took 10,000 miles. And people say, well, you should have cracked down on him earlier. You should have, when he was getting out of hand, you should have just cracked down on him. There's a reason they didn't do that, and that reason is they knew how he would have reacted. Brown has a fragile ego. They did this thing where it was called the 5-50 streak, where Antonio Brown had a streak of 5 catches and 50 yards, and you think, well, what the heck is that? That's not a. Who cares about five catches? Isn't that much, and 50 yards receiving isn't that much. But they did that to boost his ego, and I mean, there were times where, in a game that Antonio Brown would have like 4 catches and 35 yards, and it was at the end of the game, they would go out of their way to keep that streak going, basically to keep his ego going. And they knew that if they cracked down on him, like let's say 2 years ago or something like that, the end result would have been what we saw: him pouting, him being angry, him storming off the field, not showing up, and asking to be traded. So the end game was always going to be the same, and they knew that. And Tomlin, they say, had a philosophy about this, of basically, I'll put up with you as long as you produce. And that was the case. It's like, and that was always the bargain. That was always the conflict with Antonio Brown. He does all these things, but he also produces, and he's ridiculously, he's if not the best wide receiver in the league, one of the best. So you put up with all that stupid stuff, but it just got out of hand in this case. So I think Tomlin gets a bad rap, but he still, in the end, it was his fault for allowing this to happen.
Okay, how much of the blame does Art Rooney II have to take?
I think he has to get a lot of it too, because at any point he could have put a stop to this, and he didn't. And I don't know how long he's been the owner. Dan Rooney, I think he passed away a few years ago or something like that. So it's been, Art Rooney's been the owner for a few years. So this is his first like big test, and apparently Antonio Brown and Dan Rooney had this special relationship, and now Dan's gone, and it's like, well, what is Art doing? But yeah, it just seems like it. Art Rooney does not look good in this situation, and I think he could have put a stop to this a long time ago. So I think he gets a lot of blame for this too.
Now, the Steelers, they have a reputation of the players policing themselves, the players controlling the locker room. How come the front office, Rooney, Tomlin, or Kevin Colbert, the GM, didn't step in sooner before these issues got way out of hand?
We don't know what happened, and that's another question: is what did the player leadership do? And the thing with Tomlin, he gets a lot of criticism. The one of the criticisms he has is, well, you won with Cowher's players, and that actually might be a valid criticism, because he started I think it was about the 2008 season or something like that, and they went to a couple Super Bowls, and that was with Cowher's defense. They had that great defense with Troy Polamalu and all those guys. And then when those guys went away, what's that?
James Harrison.
Yeah. And then when all those guys started retiring and going away, they were replaced by, unfortunately for the most part, inferior players. Some draft misses, some hits, but some misses. But the other thing about those teams were they had strong player leadership. Heinz Ward, um, there's other ones that were that basically, like you said, would police themselves. Now you have leaders like Cam Hayward, David DeCastro, Marquise Pouncey, Ramon Foster. I don't know who else would be considered a player leader, but the question is, well, why aren't they policing this? Why aren't they pull Antonio Brown aside and said, "Hey, stop this. You gotta control yourself here. You gotta straighten up," or something like that. For all we know, that might have happened. Or they tried to talk to him, or they might have gone to Tomlin and Colbert and said, "Hey, you gotta do something about this guy." For all we know, that could have happened, and for all we know, either Tomlin or Colbert or Art Rooney, who knows, they said, "You know what? Just put up with it. We'll put up with it because he produces, and we'll just deal with it." So we don't know what happened, but it's just a sad situation, and there was so much that we don't know about this situation. It sounds like it's actually a lot crazier than we even know about. So we don't know what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, okay. Now, Heinz Ward was on Radio Road during the Super Bowl, and he expressed his disappointment with all the issues that's going on with the Steelers. What's your take on what Heinz Ward said?
It's kind of funny because during Radio Row, there was Heinz Ward, there was Rod Woodson, Jerome Bettis. Jerome Bettis was another one that I remember he heavily criticized uh, Tomlin. And okay, I mean, it's funny that they complain about Antonio Brown getting preferential treatment because Heinz Ward wasn't exactly an angel in terms of that too. He was a bit of a bit of a diva, not as much as Antonio Brown, but he did have his issues too. So yeah, I mean, it's hard to say because Heinz Ward, I think Heinz Ward and Antonio Brown played for a couple years, but Heinz Ward was kind of at the end of his end of his career, so he wouldn't know too much. But I mean, hey, it's all valid. It's all all the criticism. It's whatever, however it happened that it came to this situation. There's plenty of blame to go around. Whether it's Ben, whether it's Tomlin and Colbert or Rooney or something like that, it's a disaster of a situation. So whatever criticism they're sending, unfortunately, it's justified.
Okay, so how do all these issues affect the Steelers organization going forward?
That's the other thing. So the question is, because it's been described as a circus, is this just a disaster of is this just a disaster of an organization? Is the organization in shambles, or was it just a few bad apples? I think it was just a few bad apples. I think Le'Veon Bell was in this whole contract situation with Le'Veon Bell. That was a big distraction. This whole Antonio Brown thing, huge distraction. Uh, James Harrison in the 2017 season, that was another ridiculous situation. He was angry about playing time. He would sleep in meetings, complain, and basically he complained himself off the team. He got released, and then he ended up in New England, which really ticked off which really ticked off the Steelers. There was Martavis Bryant complaining basically about when he came back from suspension, complaining that he wasn't, basically that Juju Smith-Schuster was taking his playing time. So there was that. I think there was just those four people. That's how I view it. There were those four bad apples. There's no other distractions or anything like that. And I think we'll see that. I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned here. And one of them is don't give star preferential treatment to people. And although it has been given to Ben, which is a whole other situation, but don't give it to anybody else. And so I think we'll see. And this is a big test for Tomlin. Tomlin's contract is up, I believe, at the end of this year. And typically what happens is when there's a year left in the deal, then they'll renew it. So that actually might happen during the summer. They might actually just agree on a contract extension, or the Steelers might decide, you know what, you got to show us that you actually have this under control, and that you could show that you're not going to have a disaster. So this is a big year for Tomlin. It's a big year for the Steelers, and yeah, we'll see what happens.
Okay, so what does our Rooney have to do to restore order within the organization?
He has to tell Tomlin, don't ever let anything like this happen again. If there ever is a player that gets out of control, you don't just say, well, he produces, so we have to put up with him. That is no longer acceptable. There's just, I've been a Steeler fan all my life. There are times where I'm actually embarrassed. It's just sad what's going on, and especially a couple weeks ago when Antonio Brown would go on social media and just say the craziest things, or he would have these Twitter asks AB sessions where he would just say this whole thing has been an embarrassment for the past 2 years between the Le'Veon Bell situation and this Antonio Brown situation. When people talk about the Steelers, it's usually in terms of drama and a soap opera and stuff like this. So it's an embarrassment. And Rooney was asked by one of the reporters, "Is this a circus?" And he said, "No, that's crazy. What are you talking about?" But kind of is. And he needs to establish order and say, guys, we are the Steelers. We are a proud organization that is known for excellence and integrity, and we need to get back to that and stop with this, allowing crap to happen just because somebody produces on the field.
All right, I gotta ask you one more question before you go. I need your analysis on a certain AFC North team. What's your take on the Cleveland Browns?
I'm actually I'm kind of old, as you can see. I remember as a kid, the Browns were the main rival of the Steelers. It was the Steelers and the Browns just hating each other, and that deep rivalry. And then, but ever since they came back from the expansion team, they've been kind of I don't want to say a joke, but they've just not played well. And I put out a poll a few months ago and said, what do you think of the Browns? Do you think of them as, do you hate them, or do you just, and most people just said, we don't hate them. We kind of feel bad for them. This is coming off the 0-16 year. So, I think right now there is just nothing but optimism and excitement. Whatever you do, you can never let Dorsey go, because he is a miracle worker. It looks like everything he does is good. Although getting Kareem Hunt wasn't the best move PR wise, but I think, and especially I don't know how that's going to affect Chubb, but there's no question that Kareem Hunt is supremely talented, so that's a huge addition to them. But you got your quarterback, and that's the big thing. Baker Mayfield's a stud. People ask me, it's like, well, why are the Steelers and the Patriots so good? Why do they have this prolonged success? I said, well, it all starts with the quarterback. When you have your franchise quarterback and he's one of the best, then you could just build off that. So now you have your quarterback. Not only do you have your quarterback, but you have your quarterback on a rookie contract.
Right.
So take advantage of this window, because pretty soon, when that rookie contract is done, you're going to have to be paying him $25-30 million a year, and that's a big hit on the cap. So have fun now for these few years while you got them cheap. But you got your quarterback. Myles Garrett is a stud. Ward looks great. I mean, there's so many good things. And if the Browns have another good off season, I mean, they almost, they were a few games from almost winning the AFC North this year, and now people are saying that they're definitely going to win it next year. I don't know about that, but they're definitely a contender. I think it's going to be the Steelers, the Ravens, and the Browns right there, just a three-way fierce battle for that AFC North championship. And I mean, that's awesome, but it all depends on this offseason, and I think they'll Dorsey is just amazing. So he'll probably make some other great acquisitions, and we'll see what happens. But I mean, just so much optimism. So all those people that it's like, oh, I feel bad for the Browns or whatever. Pretty soon we're gonna hate their guts, and we're gonna it's not gonna be like, oh, cute, they won some games. It's like, oh crap, they're better than us now. So that we're very close to being at that point.
I hope it's definitely soon. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I have Joey Toscano here. He's the host of Joey Bag of Donuts. Check him out on podbean.com. I mean, yeah, podbean.com. I said it right. Yeah. Joey, thanks for coming on. We definitely got to do this again soon.
Oh, thank you so much. This is great.
No problem.